like really the digging into the emotion, and like I see the arguments on the internet and stuff about like dubs versus subs, and I don't put any credence into them, because I know it's not a real thing. The people who think that like subs are better, it's like there are inevitably going to be some versions or some dubs that are not great, but there are definitely a lot of subtitled versions of shows that are not great too. You know, it's just the nature of art, and so I know that when I really dig into a show and I'm like nitpicking like little things, I apologize to actors constantly. Where I'm like, I'm sorry, I need to make you do it one more time because we're missing this one little thing, you know. But I trust that they know that I'm working to make this English version of the show as good as it can possibly be, and I trust that they know that, and they give me their all. So I love crafting the English performances and working with the actors and just bringing it to life, and hearing from fans and stuff that what we did connected with them, or made them cry, or you know, or made them laugh. These moments are just I'm sorry, I'm going off on a crazy tangent.
That's what I was hoping you'd do.
But I have a very real belief that I, as a performer in acting or directing, people follow my work because it allows them to get away from like the harder parts of life. You know, like we all have those moments, right, where it's like, man, I had a bad day, I want to watch my favorite show, and you turn on your favorite show and you get lost in it, you laugh, you cry, whatever, and people will come up to me at conventions as an extension of that thing, that this thing is their escape. And so I have a very real appreciation of that fact, and I always try to dig into it. That's what I try to bring in my acting and in my directing, and I want people to have a good time when they're experiencing the thing that we're working on. I don't even remember the question anymore. Those are my answers. So,
when you're directing, you said you read the manga for whatever series you're directing.
If one is available, yes.
Okay. How does like your vision of the show, like how do you shape that when you're reading?
Well, it's interesting. So for example, right now I've been reading the Dr. Stone manga and keeping ahead of where the anime is, so that I have a sense of like, okay, these are the things that are important, as far as like character motivations or why they say these things and like what do they all mean. So like I'm always kind of like taking note of like, okay, this is an important thing, or this is a thing a character says all the time, or they reference, you know, this gets referenced later, so it's really important that we focus on this now because it's going to come back. Those things shape a lot in the performances, because then I'm always trying to make sure that those moments hit here so there's payoff then. What's interesting or difficult is like I'll be reading through the manga and in my head I can hear the characters' voices and I start thinking about like actors. Like I'm like, oh, this actor might be good for this, or they feel like they embody this personality. But then the Japanese version will come out and I'm like, oh, that's a high-pitched voice, you know. Like, and in my head that was a low voice, you know. So then I start like having to like readjust, like, okay, well, I had been thinking these people, but it's actually more of these people, you know. And so it's kind of an interesting ebb and flow of information, is that there are some times where I'm like, oh, this is all really important information for the acting, and then it's like, but it's totally not what I'm thinking for casting. You know? So it's pretty interesting. It just goes back and forth on like the information I'm taking from it and what it leads to. So.
And speaking of Dr. Stone, since you're directing it and you got Justin Briner on it, he's the voice of Ginro. How is that dynamic different from performing alongside him as Bakugo and Deku to now directing him as the voice of Ginro?
Well, I've actually directed Justin Briner many times. I've cast Justin on several properties. He was in Darling in the Franxx. He was in That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, among other things that I would have to really think about. What did I cast him in other than that? But Justin is a phenomenal actor. he's incredibly talented, and very funny himself. He is a very sharp-witted individual, and what I like about casting him is that, especially in like the roles of like Ginro and Dr. Stone or 9 Alpha and Darling in the Franxx, is they are not Deku. Deku is very pure, kind-hearted, good boy, and Ginro is such a piece of crap. Like, I love Ginro. Ginro is actually one of my favorite characters in the show, but he's just so funny because he's so like on his own thing. Like he's just so out for himself. Like, I want a silver spear. Like, you know, or I'm gonna be the chief of the village. Like, he's just so funny. And Justin just brings it. Like, I joke with Justin all the time while he's in the booth. I'm like, forget Deku. Ginro was the role you were born to play. Like, because he's so funny as it. He's so good, and I mean, and he steals the show in pretty much anything he's in. Like, he's a phenomenal performer in My Hero Academia. He was a riot. He's a riot in Dr. Stone, and he plays what's probably one of my favorite characters in Darling in the Franxx, where as the 9 Alpha character, like he's incredibly versatile, and yeah, I have actually nothing but good things to say about Justin Briner. So
we'll make sure we will let him know.
Yeah. I hope he does know. I have complimented
I'm sure
many
he does.
times.
He will once I post on Instagram.
I mean, Deku sucks.
Do you have a dream project that you'd either like to voice or direct?
I've got a few. I would love to be the voice of Spider-Man in something someday. Like, Spider-Man's like my all-time favorite anything ever, ever since I was a very young child. I'd love to voice Spider-Man. I'm a huge Transformers fan.
Yes.
I would love to be in a Transformers series. I have. It's kind of funny because Rooster Teeth is working on some Transformers series for Netflix, I believe, and I know some of the Rooster Teeth people, and I may or may not have emailed them back when that first got announced. I was like, "Yo, hook me up! Like, who do I need to talk to?" And they're like, "Oh, well, it's already like too far in production." I was like, "Give me in the next one! Like, give me the second season." But those especially, there are a bunch of Japanese Transformers exclusive series that came out in like the late 80s, and then like spin-offs of the shows from the 90s, Beast Wars. My truest dream project is I would love to direct the dubs of those shows if they were to ever get them. At this point, hard to say.
Neo?
Yeah, Beast Wars 2 and Beast Wars Neo. Like, I'd be like, yes, give it to me. I want it. But I don't know if they'll ever happen now, because they are so past the eye of what Hasbro's working with the brand. But if they ever did, yeah, Truck Not Monkey. I don't know if they ever would, but if they do, Hasbro, contact me, because I've got it. I got it figured out. Trust me, I got it. So those are probably the two at the top of my list. They're like, I'd love to voice Spider-Man. I'd love to direct the dubs of the Japanese Transformers shows. So.